Welcome to the Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva, and today we're going to get some insight into cheerleading at the college level. My guest today is Mike Martinez. He is the head cheer coach at Rutgers University, as well as the CEO of Next Level. Welcome to the show.
It's great to be here, and thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure speaking with you before we had the opportunity to get on camera here, and I'm excited to share a little bit about my personal experience in the industry of college cheerleading, as well as what I do now and how I can, hopefully help guide young people into making the proper decisions about where it is that they want to attend college.
Great. So usually I start my guests where they went to school. So where'd you go to college?
So I attended the University of Delaware from 2008 to 2012, where I double majored in exercise physiology and quantitative biology, and was also obviously on the collegiate cheerleading team there as well.
Wow, fantastic. So let's just go back in time before we get started. In high school, when did you start thinking about going to college? Was it freshman year of high school, senior year? When did it all begin for you?
So academics were always a priority of mine. I did exceptionally well in my primary school education, and I didn't take school all that seriously, but I did very well. So college was always on my mind, and as I got into my high school years, I started taking my SAT, and I started going through that whole process. So freshman, sophomore year is when teachers start bringing it up to you, like, hey, where do you want to go to school? And I hadn't put in an incredible amount of thought into where specifically I wanted to go, but I knew that I wanted to pursue higher education. So as I matriculated through the years, I started looking at different opportunities of where I would be able to go to school, just based on the financial constraints, the kind of university campus I was looking for, how far I wanted to be from home, and all these different things, and certainly what I wanted to pursue academically, because as you're very well aware, the multitude of options that you have in these different fields in college are almost innumerable. So to try to find something that you feel like you can excel in and will also be able to balance yourself with that investment that is college to be able to be successful afterward, I put a great deal of thought into that as I went through my high school years. And by the time I got to junior year, I'd started my tours, and I had visited a few different campuses. But when I found myself in Newark, I knew that was the proper home for me. I went to a relatively small high school in Bergen County, New Jersey, Saddlebrook High School, and I graduated in a class of like 150 kids. And we were like the biggest graduating class in like some 20 odd years. So I was not used to this lifestyle of traveling from building to building. Like, you walked in the door at 7:57 for homeroom, and you didn't leave until 2:55 when the last bell rung. And I didn't even know it was an option for so many different high schoolers around the country, and even within Bergen County, that you'd be going from building to building within high school and like selecting all these different kinds of classes. Like, we had a very standard structure of education where it was, at geometry freshman year and with biology and all that stuff, and you kind of just went through the steps. And when I went to Delaware, that was obviously a huge step up in size, right? You're talking about, at the time, 18 to 25,000 undergraduate students, if I recall correctly, and almost 30,000 if you include graduates. So the campus size itself, while being considered like a mid-major as far as, when you look at the Big Ten and the SEC, these size schools, it was still a huge enough step up for me where I felt like a little fish in a big pond, which was really cool for me, but it didn't give that exhaustive nature of some of these larger institutions. And that's certainly something that I communicate with young people now when I talk about them. But from looking at just the view from Memorial Library, if you have not been to University of Delaware, it's a sensational campus. And that the whole green area, as soon as I walked out of the library during my first tour there with my mother, I remember going, this is where I need to go. It certainly didn't hurt that they gave me a fantastic scholarship to be a student there, and they had my desired major of choice. But I just knew that I was home as soon as I saw it. So after that time, I pretty much kind of locked in. I did, early action. I applied. I got that application in before December. And when I got that letter back in, I was ready to go, and I signed and committed as soon as I possibly could.
So now you're at University of Delaware. You're on the cheerleading team. Give us a sense of what it's all like.
College life is like nothing else. It's to the extent that we have experience with seeing it in the movies. Obviously, it doesn't reach the levels of craziness that you see in some of these depictions, in Hollywood cinema, but it is certainly a wildly different experience from what you're used to in high school. I grew up in an Italian household. My mother and my grandparents are Italian, and we had a very strong family knit group. And, food was a huge part of our tradition and culture, family meals and all that stuff growing up. So it was a big step to go away from that and be relying on, cafeteria food and dining hall food and whatnot. So that in and of itself made for a very interesting experience. But living the life of a college student is the ideal thing. For an 18 to 22-year-old, it's better than anything you can imagine. I did my own laundry growing up. I was very independent, so there wasn't this huge adaptation and adjustment that I had to make as far as independence was concerned. But there not being an obligatory time to be at the door for when the school bus picks you up or when the bell rings is certainly an adjustment period. And I had great friends within my roommates and people that I lived on my floor with my freshman year that really helped ease that transition. Additionally, before the semester even started, I was part of a program called RISE, which was Resources to Ensure, I believe, Successful Scientists and Engineers. It was a minority organization that was designed to help make the transition from high school to college easier for minority students in the fields of engineering and science. And that was a fantastic way for me to get my foot in the door. So I'd already known about the campus, and I lived there in a different dorm than I lived my freshman year in the summer going into it. And I took Calc 1, I took E110, which is like your standard university writing class that everyone will have to take. And I was able to knock those out before I even started. So I felt like I was home before we got to that first weekend in Labor Day in September going there. But the entire experience overall was unfathomable from beforehand and something that I certainly cherish when I look back on it in my memories. I made lifelong friends. Half my wedding party when I got married to my wife was alumni from the University of Delaware and friends I had made and people that I lived with for years, and certainly some of my cheer friends as well. And in fact, my wife is a Delaware cheer alum as well. So it was certainly a home for me in a way that nothing else really has matched, just because you're so influenceable at that age. And it's really hard to not identify in so many different ways. Sure. I joined a fraternity. I was double majoring, so it was a lot of classwork. And then obviously we had morning lifts with cheerleading. We had practices in the evening. We had football games on Saturdays. And being part of the CAA, we were traveling to some of the away games mostly by bus, and to some of those as far as 5, 6, 7 hours. They were day trips, where now in my role as Rutgers University cheer coach, I'm taking flights out to the Midwest, and what looks like we'll be taking flights out to the West Coast now with Oregon, and the number of West Coast teams that have joined the Big Ten over the last 12 months are going to be certainly making for longer trips than I was used to, even being in the Big Ten already. But at the time, getting on a bus and heading over to JMU or going down to Richmond for the CAA tournament was something that I had never experienced. So it was awesome. The timing of living down there in Newark was just wonderful. Main Street was just a great time to be there, like a great time to be on the street and to be able to go to the restaurant, to do all these things. And it was certainly the time that I will cherish forever. And like I said, I had the opportunity to make lifelong friends and learn some stuff on the way.
So now, how does one go from graduating University of Delaware to becoming the coach at Rutgers University for cheerleading, as well as owning your own business in cheerleading?
It seems kind of convoluted when you put it that way, right? But it's not really that meandering a path. So I knew when I left college that cheerleading was part of my life that I wanted to never go away. Athletics had always meant the world to me. I actually didn't even become a cheerleader until I got to college. So growing up, I was a 3-sport athlete: football, wrestling, baseball, and then I would do soccer in the summers and indoor and stuff. But I was always in athletics. So being part of a locker room, being part of a team had always meant a lot to me. And when I went down there for that first summer with RISE that I just talked about, I got to meet a few of the athletes on the cheerleading team. And in doing so, I was like, wow, first off, this is a completely different experience from what I thought cheerleading was in general. My sister had been a high school cheerleader, but I didn't really know much about it. But more than anything, it was a challenge of athletics that I had not yet put myself to. I had topped out at whatever I was going to be in the sports that I had played, which was a great experience, but I was moving on to a different stage of my life. But there was a part of me that really hung on to the identity of a student athlete that had really defined my life in high school. Walking around in your varsity jacket and getting your letter. I was a 3-sport varsity athlete all these things that you start to identify with as part of your personality. While that stuff goes away, the underlying desire that you have to be part of something bigger than yourself is really something that I craved. And cheer really filled that void for me. And I would compare it to some extreme sports, odd this though may seem, in skateboarding and BMX and some of these places where they're always pushing the envelope for new things, for innovation. So there's really not this cap on it. Football as wonderful it is, and don't get me wrong, they innovate. If you watch, Kansas City Chiefs play football, they're playing a different brand of football than what Vince Lombardi was running, or the Delaware Wing Tee, or what got the Giants to the '08 Super Bowl. There's so many different things that football has innovated in, but ultimately it's 11 on 11, and you go 100 yards, and if you ain't big enough, you ain't playing, right? And cheerleading has so many different roles in which you can play, and so many different ways you can push the envelope, that it presents this infinite challenge, where it's not exhaustive, but it always allows you to get something new from it. So if you struggle with attention span, or if you have any of these things that make you want to pursue something new, you can do it within the confines of cheerleading. So when I graduated college, I knew that this was something that I wanted to remain part of my life. And fortunately for me, a friend of mine with whom I had cheered in my time at Delaware was starting a company. And he was going to be helping kids go to college in cheerleading, because he noticed that there was really a niche in the marketplace for it, and there was certainly a hole in the marketplace for it. We've been doing this 11 years now, so it sounds crazy to me to say to a certain extent, because we've had competition crop up all over the country with Next Level, but at the time, nobody was doing it. So he started using space at one of the gyms that he worked at for gymnastics, and started teaching co-ed stunting, which is a huge element of what college cheerleading is. And he had called me and said, "Hey man, this is getting big, I need some help." And this was October of 2013. And from then, I started doing it as a part-time job while I worked and found my way professionally. And ultimately, about 4 years later, he had the opportunity to purchase a facility and expand what Next Level could be, which was club teams, classes, rentals to high school and recreation programs, the things that I'm doing now. And he asked me if I wanted to partner with him. So I said yes, and that opportunity flourished into what everything that I have today is. So we now have a facility up in Garfield, New Jersey, about 10,000 or so square feet, where we do all different kinds of cheerleading training, but the anchor has always been our college prep process. That's something that we take pride in. It's a very one-on-one experience that I'm sure we'll get the opportunity to talk about a little bit later, but in doing so, I started sending athletes to all these different schools. Delaware had obviously always been a place where we wanted to, but I think at the time that I ended up, doing the first work with Rutgers University that I'd done, which was in the fall of that year, 2017, we had sent athletes to over 35 different colleges and universities across the country. So we had our fingerprints, and we had in our hands in all different kinds of pots, working with coaches in all these different places. And as I mentioned earlier, my wife, who cheered at Delaware, worked for a cheerleading company that is the biggest brand in cheerleading, and she had made a relationship with the Rutgers staff. So she mentioned that we had space that they could use at our facility, and also that we had some good experience with the college training process. And in fact, one of our graduates from the year before, from Next Level, had just joined the Rutgers cheerleading team.
Wow.
So it was kind of this perfect storm of opportunity. So we went and worked with them a little bit. And in that first year, we really just worked with them on getting them ready for nationals, which is like the big competition that takes place for a specific kind of cheerleading down in Orlando in January. There's a plethora of opportunity within cheerleading, but that's for a different conversation for a different time. But anyway, I made friends with the coach at the time. His name was Mike Stickle. At the end of that year, he approached myself and my wife and asked, she was my girlfriend at the time, if we wanted to join the staff. So I said yes. In a part-time role, I would be what was called a skills coach. So I wouldn't have to be at football games. I wasn't traveling. I wasn't doing basketball games. I was just going to help get these athletes better with their tumbling and stunting, which are two of the big components of what makes a great college cheerleader. And I would do so on like a weekly basis, and then maybe join them down in January for nationals. That snowballed. A few years later, Mike Stickle was ready to retire, and he asked if I wanted to come on and kind of fill his shoes and continue working with the program in a much larger capacity, of which I was more than excited to do, because I should say in that time frame I was like, can I come to the football games? Can I go on away trips? Can I be at the RAC, which is now Jersey Mike's Arena, for basketball games? And he was like, sure, of course. So I really wanted to be part of that, because it was something that was an incredible thing. Rutgers has a special place, I think, in every kid from Jersey's heart. When I was pursuing college, I went to Rutgers and went, no, this is way too big for me, right? As I mentioned, I graduated in a class of 150. It was the biggest class in 20 some odd years from my school. But Rutgers always had a special place in my heart. I played football with a few guys that went and played ball there. And that team that beat USF in 06 with the field and beat Louisville on that field goal, pandemonium in Piscataway. I will hear that in my head until the day I die. I can literally picture the sky cam coming through and going over the hill, which is now SHI Stadium. So it always held this special place in my heart. So being a Jersey kid, it was something that I was like, this is an awesome opportunity to help make Rutgers cheerleading more than what it was and something into what I'm proud to say that it is today. So yeah, it was a convoluted pathway.
So now you're the coach there. What exactly do you look for in students to come to Rutgers or to be a cheerleader at the college level? Where do you find the kids, and what do you look for in the kids to come to college to cheer?
So what we look for in prospective athletes, specifically at Rutgers University, is someone that's going to put Rutgers first. Being a college athlete of any kind, and specifically with cheerleading, is for the most part a thankless profession. I think in the day and age of NIL, we have this very skewed perception of what it takes to be a college athlete, and furthermore, what these amazing benefits are. You're getting cars, and you're getting private jets, and while that's true for a very small percentage of the population, even those athletes would tell you, if you are not ready to live and die by the colors of your university and the name and logo on your chest, you're going to struggle to be successful. Because ultimately, you're not going to go professional in cheerleading unless you have an opportunity like I have, which is business. It's not cheerleading, it's business.
Right.
You're going to have to do something with your life after you graduate from college. So it is essential that when we're looking at prospective athletes, that we believe that Rutgers is the appropriate choice for them. Okay? And that's something that I have very candid conversations with athletes, talented though they may be. If you're coming from out of state, and this is going to be something that your family does not have the resources and you don't love the campus, you're not going to do well here because you're going to have to go above and beyond as a student athlete to pass at a top 15 public institution in the country in Rutgers University academics, and also be competitive in a Big Ten cheerleading program on the sideline for marathon days. Football home games in the Big Ten are second to none in its pageantry. For my money, it is the best game day experience across the country. I've had the opportunity to travel to pretty much the entire Big Ten prior to these new schools joining it. And every place has its own unique traditions. But ultimately, when speaking with the athletes at other programs as well as the coaches at these programs, you know, whether you're riding a fire truck at Indiana on a Friday night or you're at Rutgers University walking the boardwalk 4 hours before kickoff and then doing a pep rally and then doing the Scarlet Walk where the football team arrives and then going to get yourself ready for the game and then cheering a 3.5-hour football game on national television with 3.5-minute media timeouts where you're doing full field takeovers, taking that stuff over, and that's your whole Saturday. And by 5 o'clock, you've been up since 6. You were doing hair and makeup. You were in uniform. You were at a president's tailgate. You were doing 50-50s. And then you had to do elite athletic skills. If you don't love the place that you're at, you're going to struggle. So it's really important to us that we find athletes, students, humans, that their family is supportive of their decision and that this is the place that they want to be and that they have the characters that we're looking for, which is someone that's hardworking, cares about their academics, cares about being an ambassador for the university, which is their first and their foremost job as a college cheerleader, whether it's at Rutgers or elsewhere, somebody that can represent the university in positive light at all times. Furthermore, and this is where this Venn diagram gets really small, you also have to have elite athletic skills. We're talking about, for the most part, years of cheerleading or gymnastics experience where you're able to do elite level tumbling skills and have proprioception, which is air awareness is what we refer to that as, and be able to have incredible amounts of physical strength to be able to stack humans on top of each other, you know, in explosive, quick twitch muscle kind of fashion. So that cross section is really small. You're talking about straight A students from high school that have all of these character and personality traits that we're looking for, in addition to this elite physical skill set.
So tell me, girls of all sizes, guys of all sizes come out for cheerleading?
Absolutely. So cheerleading has so many different avenues. It is probably one of the most diverse activities in all of athletics. The best way I can compare it is, well, I don't know if it's the best way, but a great way to compare it is positions. Okay, on a football team, everybody has an offensive line, everybody has wide receivers, everybody has tight ends, everybody has running backs. But if you look at something like the NFL, you know, you could probably name the 5 fullbacks that are still left in the NFL. And yet, those guys, you look at, you know, at Kyle Juszczyk out in San Francisco, one of the most valuable pieces of the puzzle for their sustained success. And yet, a fullback is a position where if you walked into a different locker room, they'd be like, we don't even need you here, right? So there's positions that are required on every team, but then there's also different universities that utilize different positions that may exist at other schools, may be essential at other schools, but may not even exist at other schools. Furthermore, it's like there's 7-on-7, there's Ivy League football, there's, you know, where you have weight classes and all this stuff, or weight limits and all this stuff, and then you have Big Ten football. So there's all these different kinds. In cheerleading, we have the same thing. We have co-ed cheerleading, And we have all-girl cheerleading or multi-base cheerleading because these are different stunting styles, not necessarily descriptive of the personnel based on their gender. So every school is going to have a team. Every school that has a team, I should say, is going to have details about what kind of spots and positions that they offer. At Rutgers, we have what we call a traditional large co-ed team, which is single-base stunting. And for those of you that are not cheerleading fans, this may sound like an alien language, but it is something that's really the traditional college look, which is a single base, a male on the ground, throwing a top person, typically a female, into the air. And that's going to be the two positions that you typically will see at a large co-ed school. So not female bases, female top persons or flyers going in the air, with male bases staying on the ground. And then a variety of these athletes, both male and female, we're going to be looking for them to do some elite level tumbling skills as well. So while every school is different, the model that Rutgers uses is a very traditional college model. It's what you'll see at a number of different schools. But as I said, there's a multitude of opportunity. So if cheerleading is something that you're pursuing at the college level, the most important step is to go onto your university's athletics website and see what kind of cheerleading the school has, and then furthermore, follow them on their social media so you can see what a day in the life is like of being one of the cheerleaders at that school.
Now, how about monies for cheerleading? Is there scholarships? Is there monies available for cheerleading at the college level?
Absolutely. So there's again, a plethora of different opportunities. And I would also say that because it is not an NCAA regulated sport, the way that scholarship opportunity works comes in a variety of different forms, and it's not equal opportunity across different universities or even within conference. So at Rutgers, for instance, we have scholarship. We have great scholarship opportunity for some of our student athletes through an endowment fund. So it is not an athletic scholarship through the university directly, but it is an endowment fund that's set up through the university that we then get to allocate toward athletes with the specific terms set forth by our endowment. At different universities, they may have in-state tuition waivers. There's a couple schools that come up to mind, Sam Houston State in Texas, and there's plenty of these. And I know that, what University of West Georgia down in Carrollton, Georgia, which are two excellent cheerleading programs, they both have tuition waivers. So that means that if you're a New Jersey resident, instead of paying out-of-state tuition at their school, you would pay in-state tuition, which parents, of those of you that are looking at schools, those numbers like, dang, I wish I could pay that. So while that's not a scholarship, that's certainly an indirect way to get to college savings, because I think one of the biggest misconceptions that many people have, and it's not just within athletics, it's within all of the college application process, is instead of looking at total out-of-pocket cost, they look at gift dollars, where you're combining your FAFSA money that you have through these government subsidized loans, as well as scholarship opportunity, and go, wow, I got $40,000. It's like, yeah, but if it costs $85,000, you're still paying $45,000. Whereas at a place like West Georgia, if you get zero scholarship dollars, but you're paying $6,000 a year to be in state, that's a pretty significant benefit of being there. So there are schools, to answer your question, I guess, succinctly as possible, there are schools that offer full scholarship. There are plenty of schools that offer no scholarship. There are some schools that you actually have to fundraise to be able to afford to be on the team, and there's everything in between.
So now, for the students that are in high school, is it better for them to do cheerleading at the high school level or come to an organization like Next Level or one of these USA Cheer facilities that are outside? Do you see more students going outside the high school level?
I would say yes and no to answer your question. I don't think that there's a perfect or ideal pathway. The most important thing for any high school level athlete in cheerleading is that you're doing something to get yourself better while being on a team. So in the same way that college has this diversity of skill level and different kinds of cheerleading, so does high school. New Jersey has some of the best cheerleading teams in the country, and they also have teams that don't compete. And I'm talking about high schools. Meaning that you're on the sideline cheering for your football team, or maybe you're on the baseline cheering for your basketball team, but your team doesn't compete. Meaning that you're not pushing the envelope with difficulty of skills, and therefore you're not making yourself that competitive with the rest of the athlete pool that may be doing so either from New Jersey or from different regions of the country. So in order to be successful at the college level, it's important that you're supplementing your skill set in the best way you can to get yourself as close to the ideal person that your prospective school is looking for.
Gotcha.
So it's different for everybody. I would say that there are plenty of organizations that do a good job in helping guide, and I think that's something that Next Level has really put itself aside from the rest of the pack, is understanding what you need to be doing in order to get prepared, because the answer is different for everybody, but I would not say that there's an ideal pathway. The reason being is that While club cheer, which is a service that we offer at Next Level, and I'm incredibly proud of our program, you're dedicating yourself to the success of that program. And in doing so, you're kind of sacrificing your own individual development in a certain way for your long-term goals in exchange for the short-term success of your season with your team, which is the right and the obligation of the club to ensure that they're doing so. And in the same way, high schools have very similar thought processes. So it's really important, and frankly, this is true of pretty much every sport nowadays, that you're doing something and your family's doing something outside of your team obligations to prioritize your own future. Making sure that you're able to build it into your schedule, that you can go and visit schools that you want to see, attend clinics at the schools, attend combines where they're in the summertime or in the spring or fall, there's different organizations that are having a number of universities come to them where you can show off the skills that you have in the same way that you would see with other sports, whether it's AAU basketball, like the All-American game and stuff like that. These are all different ways that people are getting to see a talent pool. And that's the important thing, is being able to put yourself out in front of people, and when you get there, making sure that you've been preparing yourself as many different ways as possible to get yourself ready, because college cheerleading is diverse.
So we're coming to the end of our show, and usually I ask my guests, what advice do you want to give to the parents and the students that want to go to college to cheer? What advice do you want to give them?
It's an excellent question, and one that I do get often, and I huff and I puff because there's so many things I want to say, but the most important thing that I can say is make informed decisions. Okay, in the modern age, with social media and the proliferation of access to information, it is inexcusable, in my opinion, that families that are working to make these decisions about the future of the young person that they're looking to get into college and have be an athlete, that they don't know all of the information that's possibly available. Whether it's utilizing a service like ours at Next Level, utilizing a service like there's a recruitment, that we're partnering with right now called University Seekers, that help create this holistic profile for you to be able to know exactly what you're looking for and find schools that are going to cross-reference that. Doing stuff like that is the essential step, because you don't know what a good opportunity is if you're not quantifying what it is that you're looking for. Have you looked at the economics or the financial necessities that's going to require? How important is proximity to home? How important is the campus style? How important is campus location? How important is social life? How important is the major that they're going to be taking? And do they have it at the schools that you're looking at? What kind of cheer team do they have? So if you're not pursuing that information, because some of it's harder to find than others, if you're not pursuing that information, you are setting yourself up for failure. And just taking that one step of asking questions every which way you can will set you aside from the rest of the pack in a way that will make for a memorable experience for your young person and your family.
Great. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure. I enjoyed doing this. I hope we could do it again soon.
Yeah, sure. So you've been watching The Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva. Until next time. Thank you.